Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission. It's a pleasure to be here one more time. I think I promised you last year I would not be here if we did not do what we said we were going to do, but it all worked out, so I'm back. A couple of things. First of all, Francis, let me answer. I'm chairman of the Idaho State Scenic Byway Commission for the state, for Transportation Department, and I'm also the manager of the Teton Scenic Byway, which is now part of a group called the Yellowstone Grand Teton Loop Road, which I'll explain more in our presentation in a minute, which is one of the top 10 roads. So probably worth just 10 seconds. The federal highway program provides about $40 million a year around the country on a competitive basis for scenic byway facilities. Idaho has been one of the better groups to tap into those funds around the nation for quite some time. I think now we're in a position where there are now 30 of them in the state of Idaho. I think Karen has taken the position that we ought to be advertising Idaho as the scenic byway state, and there's a great deal to recommend that. So that being the case, we go after $1 million to $2 million a year for the state from the feds. They pay 80% of each project, and that's a big number. And so when you hear the road going to Ovalolo Pass, you've heard 4 of them this morning that have asked for some match money for something on their byway to either economic development or bring tourism through their communities. Most of those are going after what they need for the 20% to get the 80. And those are, generally speaking, very well worth doing. You can look at each one of them, but that's the structure of it. We just finished the prioritization for this year. We put in for about $1.4 million statewide. That included most of the people you've been listening to. Apart from that, this year we just, in that appropriation request, put in something, Anna could give me the right number, but it's somewhere between $400,000 and $500,000. The largest single grant application was for refunding Top 10 in its next cycle. And that's of enormous significance to the roads that are in the state, including ours. And so this second $2,000 business that you hear from a couple of us is those of us that represent particular roads are being asked for match against the $400,000 request. So you'll see a couple of those. But in any event, we're more than happy to explain this in detail as you get down it. It is a little confusing, but the bottom line of it is it's a very good subject to be chasing. It's been successful. We've had it prove out in Europe that it's one of the things that attract people the most, and it's usually cheap because the feds are picking up 80% of it. So that's the scenic byway story. I followed Behringer's model of a talking point comment rather than a detailed one. When you get the final, it'll have the specifics that you need and like. And I don't really want to go through it this way either. I think it's important, like John I think said first this thing this morning, is talk about what's important. Now, without being the bad guy in the group, I'm one mountain range over further, so before we all get carried away with the joint efforts that are going on here, you should know that those were invented without us. We've been invited to do it. We've indicated our indication that we would entertain joining both of those projects. But you asked a question about the percentage of local match. Well, our book, which is supposed to be delivered to you here today, that we just did on an every other year basis, cost about $35,000. This group contributed 10. We raised the other 25. We have consistently raised a significant amount of the cost of doing the guidebook for our district. That's one of the things that concerns us about this thing, is that the others have not done that in the past. And before you bite off on that one and take some great big damn number, you really ought to be asking is why the communities aren't putting up more money to advertise themselves, because it is possible to do. Now that's, enough of that. I don't mean to beat up on my pals here, but we need to look at these things to find out whether we're losing the quality and we're spending more money than we really deserve to spend. And I don't think that story is ended yet. Having said that, I would be more than happy to entertain over this next little while whether we ought to take District 6 and put the whole damn thing together. If we're looking at consolidation, we ought to be consolidating things that fit together. And anyway, that's another subject. So back to my 1 minute or whatever I've got left. Next comment I would make is I think that oil prices are going to go up about $30 a barrel in the next little bit. I think the downturn in the economy is going to double on its way down. I think that you've got a situation where the redone mortgages are now in default again to about 30 or 40% and are anticipated to be in default to about 85% per summer. I think if we take a look at this whole economic scenario, somebody ought to be thinking about what happens if this gets worse, a whole lot worse, and in a reasonably short period of time. I think it's a distinct possibility. Lots of people disagree with me, but I think I know enough about the subject to suggest it's a possibility. That being the case, in looking at our program, we have tried to focus on those specific things that we can do to get 1,000% return in 6 months or less. We're looking at things where can you get a home run really fast before it dissipates on you and you've lost it and you're in worse condition. I think we've got 3, maybe 4. One is, we've had an awful lot of the PR fam tour stuff over the last few years that's put us on the map. I think we're getting an enormous amount of coverage worldwide because of it. We need to follow that up and not lose it. Last year we had a big media day as part of our summer festival that drew 24 journalists from around the world. That number is going to go up to about 40 in this next round. And it's probably the most massive PR media fam thing that we do. But it's been succeeding in getting us on the map as a place. And if we're not on the map as a place, then obviously we're not going to put anybody in a bed. So that's in our thing here. Number 1 and number 2 basically are sustaining that kind of a program. We're not out chasing more new events. I happen to believe that Carol Waller was absolutely right. They have gone after 100% quality stuff, and as many of them as they can find. Well, if you look at the little list I made, I picked out 16 of 35 or 40, all of whom are more than one day. We're now into a PGA competition, we're into music events, we're into the sports events. Our local guys have responded to the need for events and attractions magnificently. All we need to do is help them a little bit promoting it. We're not contributing to the costs of any of those events. So continuing that stuff is probably number 1. Number 2, we've got a situation where, well, before I get off that, the Jackson Rodeo has decided to come over to our place, and so there are now 9 of those during the course of the summer, and that's a big inflow of regional cowboys and people.